Hey, welcome to a new episode of Strong and Proud. My name is Fernanda Bosmediano, and this project aims to eliminate violence against women and empower them to take on leadership positions in tech by sharing knowledge in three key areas: mindset, leadership, and role models. Today's focus is on leadership, and I'm excited to have an expert on this topic with us, Neil Metzler. Welcome, Neil. I'm so happy to have you here with us.
Yeah, thank you, Fernanda. It's great to be here. Great to meet you, listeners. Thanks for spending time with us.
For the audience, Neil is a senior sales professional. He has more than 10 years of experience in sales in Seattle, London, and Berlin. He's also an ICF trained coach for career resilience and well-being at work. In 2020, he founded Your Next Big Thing, a career coaching practice helping tech professionals reach their goals faster with less friction and fewer setbacks. His clients work at companies like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Adobe. He's living in Leipzig. I always thought you were living in Berlin, though.
Yeah, it's my little secret. Yeah, we can tell more in the
Yeah,
episode.
because I always see him in Berlin, but he's living in Leipzig.
It's true.
Yeah, with his wife and a cat, but he's gonna tell us a little bit more about that. So yeah, Neil, before I talk about your whole life, tell us you like can you tell us who is Neil? Sorry, Neil. Who is Neil? What do you personally do? Like how did you end up in Germany?
Yeah, how did I end up in Germany is a great story. I grew up speaking a bit of German with my dad at home in America, in the United States, in Seattle. So I had some opportunities to speak a bit of German, and I learned that our family emigrated from Germany like around 100 years ago to
Yeah.
North America. And I always thought it would be interesting to reconnect and bring the circle all the way around. I studied a bit of German language, and I studied abroad in university for 1 year at the Uni Tübingen. And that's actually where I met the love of my life, and we got married a few years later. Francesca and I always had this dream to move back to Germany, but with jobs and paychecks instead of as
Yeah.
students who couldn't afford good food and things like that. Moving back to Berlin became actually like a 5 year project for us in our careers. And we did that by leveraging the global mobility programs of a large corporate company. And yeah, it's one of the greatest satisfactions of my life, having been able to move back, improve my German language, and reconnect with the culture. So very proud that I made that happen. Yeah.
Oh, that's really nice. So, Neil, uh, are you into music as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So outside of work and also at work, sometimes I play bass in a rock band called CCC, based here in Leipzig. And we've had a few gigs so far, and we're preparing to record and release like our first kind of studio work, all original songs. And I really enjoy playing music. Have played ever since I was 10 years old, guitar, drums, now bass. And I also picked up DJing when I started moving internationally, because
Oh, wow.
it's hard to carry your amplifier, your guitar, your drum set with you as you move. But DJing is a really global way to communicate and vibe and engage with different cultures. So I have recently had a great milestone. I played my first 4 hour DJ set
Oh,
here in
wow.
Leipzig, and that's like a big a big thing. It was just scheduled for 2 hours, but people kept dancing, so the venue wanted to stay open late. Yeah, as a I play mostly disco and house, so that was a really cool thing to have recorded and to be able to listen back and go to the big moments in that set. And I'm really satisfied with it.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so nice. Maybe you will become like a famous DJ. Who knows? Or are you already famous? I don't know. Maybe. I didn't know that, but
No, I mean, I have big plan. My next big thing with
Ah,
DJing is definitely producing and like creating my own tracks. So right now, I'm mainly just
amazing.
mixing. So, yeah, music is a great hobby. It gives you so much, and it's also a great way to connect with people. That's not in the tech bubble necessarily. So that's something that's become important to me as I've moved from Seattle to London and then Berlin. Is like how to also keep a perspective and not be in a really in my own bubble.
Yeah. So, just for the audience to know, I recently met Neil, and I really admire your career because I'm also working in sales, and I found that he has a lot of experience, and that he was like in roles at Amazon, as I mentioned, and now you work as a senior account executive at Do It. And Neil, I wanted to ask you this, like, for someone like me, aspiring to be in your position at some point, like what were these critical steps you took early in your career, or that you can, for example, if you could tell me, like, what can Fernanda do, or what did you do at some point to be where you are at this moment?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for the question. And let me see if I can give some recommendations and be practical about it. So, what worked for me was I started to develop specialized skills. I developed specialized language skills in German and Mandarin Chinese. Um, Having these language skills allowed me to apply for specialized roles, such as sales roles, which required German, or other roles which required Mandarin Chinese. And this narrows the competitive pool of whom you are competing against. And I've really realized in my career there are many smart, bright, effective people out there who can perform at a high level, but there are few of them that have the exact skills and motivation that I do as I look back on it 10 years in. So, the earlier, Fernando, you can identify what are your unique skills, what is it that comes more easily to you, which is very difficult, rare, or unusual for others. It might be your skills with numbers and data. It might be your ability to stay cool under pressure in a negotiation situation, which you might face in sales. So, I work with a process to kind of identify and uncover these superpowers by looking at my achievements in the last 2 to 4 years and then working with a coach to uncover which superpowers really powered those achievements to completion. And with that, you start to get a sense more of who you are and what you bring to the table. And from there, you can build a cohesive personal brand as well. So that's the skills to personal brand aspect. The second thing is more about the company and the team that you're working in. So a turning point for me was when I started thinking more like an investor in a sense of what is the growth potential for the business unit that I'm working in? What is the margin on the product that I'm selling? Because if you find high growth opportunities, you have a chance to really increase your scope and impact and rack up big time achievements that can catapult you to the next phase of your career, to the next stage or level. And if you work on high margin products, and believe me, I've worked on low margin products in e-commerce before. Um, I was told not to get a second bowl of soup at the team lunch because it was just one bowl of soup per person. Thank you very much. When I was working on a low margin product, okay? And I was really like, yo, man, like really gonna do me like that? I'm working overtime hours here in Q4, and I can't have two bowls of soup. And then that really showed me that, hey, you're one person doing a low level role in a low margin product, so this is the status that you enjoy. So over time in my career, as I moved into cloud, or as you move into SaaS products, those are high margin businesses. So they can create different kinds of opportunity, and you get to enjoy a different status and conditions with your work. So thinking like an investor can help you identify these things, Fernando. You can say, wow, actually, no matter how hard I work, I'm in a low margin business, and it's never really going to get better for me. Or yeah, I'm in a low growth area. I need to reinvent my career. I need to reskill and find a new industry, which it's okay. And I think the average person will have to redefine their career between 4 to 8 times over the course of a 100-year life. So yeah, run towards that career reinvention. Don't put it off. Don't wait, and don't be afraid.
That's really, really important, I think. And thank you so much for sharing that with us and with me, especially. Uh, Neil, I think like through your career as well, you probably had to make, like you said now, for example, changing positions, like these decisions, probably you took a lot of these decisions, like either changing your position or changing your company, the industry itself, right? So I don't know which was one of these decisions that you said like this was like the one, if it is, if there is one, like the one
Yeah.
that changed everything or gave, I don't know, was this turning point in your career?
Yeah, the real true game changer for me was 5 years ago when I actively disrupted my career in e-commerce in order to actually upskill and land in a cloud sales position in tech. So I was working at a tech company, but I was doing a type of sales which was not did not have a deeply technical component to it. And I was working on a floor in London, and I remember looking across the floor, exactly like I told you. There are so many talented, smart people who, honestly, many of whom are outworking me. And for the tasks that were on my next kind of promotion level, I wasn't sure that I really had differentiated like value add. So I was kind of like, I was looking at sticking around for 2 or 3 more years and trying to really grind my way to the next level. Or I decided to experiment with the idea of maybe moving into cloud. And at first, I was really hesitant. I had major imposter syndrome. It wasn't the first time I'd thought about it, and I had turned back before. And I spoke with my mentor and I spoke with my family, and they said, what have you got to lose? Like, why not be brave and take a risk on this if it's worth it to you? And this kicked off like an 18-month career reinvention cycle where I interviewed several times before I got the cloud sales role. I needed to get a solutions architect associate certificate, and I ran a data science project as the a de facto DevOps lead for a trend detection engine in fashion, where I procured and managed in a compliant way petabyte scale clickstream data for our senior data scientists to work with, all built on top of AWS cloud infrastructure. That's something that I could have never dreamed of doing if I had continued to hesitate and doubt myself and not taken steps forward and started to communicate like, hey, I am really thinking about this. Can you help? Or can you introduce me to someone who can help? Because I definitely leaned on my network to help me during that transition. And at the end, I got a new role in a new industry in a new city, and I moved from London to Berlin. And that just lined up so well with my values and my purpose that I was so satisfied when I had achieved that.
And so, if I understood correctly, you took all these courses like before you went to the role itself, right?
Yes, yeah, this
And
is
that's amazing.
really so I mean, like wow, right? It's very difficult. The solutions architect associate certificate is something that people at like a key account role are expected to complete within maybe 6 months of joining
Yeah.
the role. This was the expectation at that time, and those always raise over time. And the first time I interviewed it, like I said, I didn't get it. So as I was improving and upskilling and working with a mentor to prepare to apply again, like 6 to 9 months later, one of the things that he suggested was, look, Neil, I know you've been starting your studies for this certificate. Would it be possible to accelerate that and maybe pass the certificate before you interview with us? Because it would demonstrate amazing bias for action, ownership, learn to be curious. And I remember reading that Slack message, and I think I was literally sweating, Fernanda, like after I read that message, because yeah, the exam, it's like what, like 2 hours, something like that. I think 90 questions. It's yeah, and then I passed it with a very high grade. I passed it with a very high grade because um, I've noticed that when I set my mind to something, I'm very determined about it. And I have this overriding urge to leave no doubt. So when I do something, like I want it to leave no doubt about what it says about me. And I think that's a great approach, to do fewer things and do them better. Because we can't do everything like that. But the things
Yeah.
that matter, we really have to fight for.
Oh, that's really nice. Neil, I also like when you were talking now, you said like for example you were in different countries, and how how important do you think is that for someone to be in an international company? Like or in general for your career, how important you think is like to have these experiences or be flexible and be if you have the opportunity to do it, of course, like to work in different environments.
Sure. I believe that it comes down to values and goals.
Mm.
So for me, my values and goals were very much about global mobility. So I first applied to Amazon with the big idea being, oh my gosh, maybe I can work for an American company, but transfer internally to go abroad. Because Fernanda, I had spent maybe 2 years trying to get hired directly in Italy, in UK, and without success. So this was those experiences of having trouble getting visa, having trouble when applying directly. They were like life lessons for me of like, I
Yeah.
want the security of working in a big company that has a global mobility policy where I can just file some tickets, just make some applications, and they will actually support me to go abroad and live internationally, which is something I've striven to do since I was probably 12 or 13 years old. So for me personally, it mattered a lot. I don't know that I could say that in general it matters for everyone, because
Yeah.
you're doing things the hard way too, right? When we move to another country, like it makes things more complex. And
Yeah.
my family, my parents are back in Seattle, but I'm here with 9 hours time difference here in Germany. And there are sacrifices and trade-offs as well.
Yeah, no, I mentioned because a lot of people I met recently that are, for example, in senior roles or like CEOs, a lot of them have these experiences, like, and they I think the flexibility, like, of taking those opportunities in other places, and I just listened that now from you, so I was like, okay, maybe this, it's like an advice as well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, for management and leadership, I think
Mm.
in that sense, I think it is really important when we go beyond personal career goals and more about leadership competencies, because we need to be able to effectively lead, communicate, empathize with international teams. And moving to a place like London, moving to a place like Berlin can really provide those opportunities for you. So, yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And also that you mentioned now you took like some certifications, and I know you were also reading like a book of designing your life. Right? I also
Yeah.
actually I have this book as well. But are there any other like courses or books that you say, for example, that help you personally as I think as a person, as Neil, uh, and that also affected this in your professional career or in your professional life in general? Are there some tools you think are helpful?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'll start with just two for the business world. So,
Mm.
one for kind of the corporate side, although it's also applicable for startups. which is a all-time classic. It won't be a surprise to many people that I name drop it, but Measure What Matters by John Doerr, which is all about the objectives and key results method for goal setting and tracking that he pioneered together with Google very early in that company's life. And the reason I mention this book is it really helps you understand what is happening at work in the context of planning, strategy, and execution. No matter if you're an IC, a middle manager, or a senior leader, it provides a framework and way of thinking about what's happening and what we're doing. And it also helps me plan and manage my own business. And yeah, it's just it's one example of an effective framework. The second one is called Venture Deals. It's by Brad Feld and Jason Mendelsohn. This is another time-worn classic that every startup founder should read. So Venture Deals is kind of a tome or Bible all about everything that comes before, during, and after you are fundraising. And it really breaks things down from a legal, financial, cultural perspective, do's and don'ts. So it's something that you shouldn't go to investor meetings without having read and equipping yourself with this knowledge. It's also very entertaining and approachable. So it's taught in many business schools around the world. So yeah, Venture Deals is a must read.
Oh, thank you. I actually now have so many things to read then.
Nice.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And then actually, I also saw because I think the first time we talked, we were talking in LinkedIn, right? Yeah, because I actually went to an event. I went to a TED event, and then I saw you speaking
Yes.
there, and I was like, oh, I really enjoy like your presentation. And then we connected on LinkedIn, and then I saw that you were doing a lot of things, and I was like, oh, that, and then I was really thinking more about like personal brand because I was, of course, always working on my full-time job, but apart from that, I was always going to these events, and that's how like I said, like I saw you the first time, and then we connected on LinkedIn, and I was like, I think this personal branding is really important because I saw you doing that. I saw some other leaders doing that. I saw some people that, for example, when they were a lot of people there were a lot of layoffs in the company, actually many companies this year. And then I saw
Yeah.
that people who were doing this personal branding, they didn't even have to apply for jobs. So I was like, maybe I want to ask you, like, how important do you think this is it? Like, and how can we do that?
It's a great question. It's a question I think about too, Fernanda. And getting started, getting the right balance, and then also nurturing it and growing it authentically over time is still like a struggle and challenge for me too. But um, the high points can also be very exhilarating, like talks or events or opportunities that come through. So I do think it is worth it, even though it can be a challenge to find the time and to keep up with at times. So um, and I think the so what you called out about attracting opportunities instead of needing to seek opportunities is really good because um, if you can stand out and have a view and have a perspective, it really adds to who you are on your CV. I think especially as you're going from early career to mid career and senior, it's not just about the companies you worked at, the role titles you had. It's really about the social proof. So what panels are you speaking on? You know, what type of peers are on those panels? And if you're competitive in terms of your ideas in the marketplace of ideas and the way that you can tell stories, the way that you can deliver and communicate, it's a huge differentiator, and it makes it very easy for recruiters to reach out to you with top opportunities. So how can you get started with that? I think the best way is to actually first look inwards rather than looking outwards and just having FOMO and imposter syndrome by all the great work or the shiny lights and microphones that you can see like when you look out there. So What I mean by look inward is I took a trip to Norway, and we were cat sitting for a couple who were away for 2 weeks. And when you go to like a quiet place on a beautiful fjord, and you have the opportunity to let your mind move ideas forward, you're not pushing your personal brand, but certain things may occur to you when you find that quiet space,
Yeah.
about what you want or how you'd like to show up for your audience, for your community, for the people that you care about, for your tribe. So when I came back from that trip to Norway, and I'd had a few mentoring calls and things while I was there, connecting with people, floating ideas, thinking what ifs, it was really clear to me how I wanted to proceed. And more concretely, what I did was I mapped my kind of career arc, and I found what those big moments or milestones were for me that were so rich in meaning, that were so rich in transformative change for me. And then I did another layer of reflection on that, which was, what does this mean? What were my takeaways from that that might be relevant for other people's experience as well? Maybe, potentially. And then another layer around that is really, what are my big ideas about life, work, meaning, and mattering? Right? Like they talk about in Design Your Life, by Bill Burnett and the Stanford crew. So once you are on the area of finding your big ideas, it's easy to start building the key messages that you want to communicate out of that. And then you'll have whatever LinkedIn posts, Instagram posts for like the rest of your life, because you just have to encapsulate pieces of those core ideas, deliver them in a way that can be easily received, easily understood, and then find a way to do it in a way that comes most naturally to you, in a format, in a way that does that you can record with people that you trust, that you can
Yeah.
work with other people who are experts in this type of media communication, and then it's just format and delivery from there, and then refreshing and staying inspired. So I think it's just these cycles of creation, refreshing, inspiration. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I think, for example, for me it was very interesting actually because now my audience is growing, but it was like
Yay.
it was very related to what you said actually. I Because for me, while I'm just very curious in general, and I just love building communities, and I love being with people. And as I said, like while I was working, I was always building communities, just naturally, just because I love it. And I was like, let's say, for example, when I was, because I run, I was like always organizing these runs together. Like I was organizing where we're gonna meet, where we're gonna finish, like where we're gonna, always keeping the group together. Like if I was going to another country, I was doing the same. Like just from out of nowhere, I would have like 20 people, 100 people, and I was just like doing that because I just love it. I just love being with people. Maybe for some people in the audience, it's just something you do it another way, but if you love being with people like me, I think that worked very well because I was not thinking about building my personal brand. I was just thinking about helping people, being with people, doing things that I love with people. And then when I experienced this about my job of because of these layoffs, then I realized that everyone outside of my circle saw me as a leader. Everyone. And
Man.
everyone was willing to recommend me in their companies. So they were like, oh, I can refer you because I know you're a good leader. And I was leading them not in tech. I was organizing runs, or I was organizing language events, or I was organizing other kind of things, but they saw those skills. So I think that's maybe a little bit of a combination of what you mentioned at the beginning, like kind of looking at your things that you value, you like, and at the end, that is not only what you do in your company. It's like you're always building this who you are, your personal branding, with the things that you share, with the things that you say, in the places you are, with the people you collaborate. Well, that's my opinion, I think. But I
Yeah.
think that has helped a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's a great point because you looked at what you were doing. Like we are what we do. We like our behaviors are our identity,
Mm.
says James Clear. So you were like, wow, I'm really spontaneously able to, despite needing to do a lot of organization, even while traveling abroad in new places, I'm just doing this. It's coming easily to me, although it might be very difficult for other people because if it was easy, everyone would have already done it. And then you just needed to do more of what you were already passionate about and speak more about that. And I mention this because I think for some folks getting started with personal branding, people say things to me like, Neil, I don't want to do that because it feels fake. It feels not
Mm.
authentic to me. And so I would say it's not about doing more of what other people are doing. It's about doing more of do you, do more of who
Yeah,
you are. So that's really cool.
yeah, I agree 100%. I think the more natural you are and the experiences you as a person share, the more traction it's gonna get, I think, actually. Yeah. So, and I think like because now I just mentioned like I just became a leader
Yeah.
without even noticing. Uh, but then what for example you in your career have seen what do you think are these qualities of leaders? And yeah, what do you see, for example, when you see someone, how can you say, okay, this person is a leader or not, regardless of if they have their title or not, and how can you help also people becoming leaders, or what would you suggest to them? Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is a super question. I would love to hear also what your other guests have to
Yeah,
say
yeah.
about this one. I think there's many angles to take here. I'll take just one, which is I think leaders have developed their own unique view or perspective on things. And what I mean is that when I go into a doc review at Amazon with like particular memorable Amazon leaders, they will always say something in that meeting which shows me a unique perspective or a unique approach, sometimes that I hadn't considered. They they are not just asking standard questions that they learned in business school or that they heard other people ask. They're really synthesizing what is now with what has been with what they think will be in the future and really trying to move us to the important actions to deal with that and to manage that. So I also work with certain senior leaders who are starting to develop their personal brand. And in one example, this was someone who had been at their company for 20 years in like a VP to SVP type motion. And when I looked at this person's resume, as well as their 360 that they got from their executive coach, there was so much richness that they were not tapping into, that they were not even talking about in their personal brand, in their LinkedIn, in the way that they communicate. And I helped that person to kind of bridge the 360 feedback with where they wanted to go next, and then come up with the 2 or 3 key themes and messages for their personal brand. So this is something that you can do at any phase. You don't need to wait until you're 20 years into your career to let your stories come alive. Let your why, your purpose, your vision become more clear and shared with others. You don't need to hide or wait to do that.
Yeah, okay, so it's more like to become a leader is more like showing your strengths. So developing your skills and showing that. Is that correct? What like
Yeah,
your
I think it's in the
experiences.
way. I think it's in the way you engage and collaborate.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's in the way you engage and collaborate. And it's not just about are you smart, are you right a lot. It's more like can you ask the right question that
Mm.
helps the other person move their idea forward? Or when you're asked for feedback, can you give really meaningful, impactful, needle moving feedback to help that other person? Because people whose opinions are sought out typically will get elevated to leadership roles. So what makes an opinion worth going and getting, or what makes it worth waiting 2 weeks to book time with someone, or a month to book time with someone for. It's because you know they are going to ask you the questions that you need to hear, right?
Yeah.
So this is difficult to develop. I don't know what the secret formula is, Fernando, but it's something I've noticed about really great
Yeah.
leaders. And yeah, I think it starts again with that looking inwards, understanding, and then also really growing and being super curious, challenging one's own assumptions, and drawing inspiration from many sources. Yeah,
Yeah. And probably also what you mentioned also at the beginning of if you work with international people, I think that also helps and kind of understanding all these different cultures and understand. I mean, for me at least, like I haven't worked in as a leading teams itself, but what I see is like when I lead all the other teams outside of work, uh, I think it's about really caring and connecting with people and understanding that, especially because my communities, they are all very international, so from everywhere in the world. Just understanding that they have just different, sometimes different ways they say things. And for me, it's like, I know that because it doesn't mean, for example, somebody says something and I know it's not bad. It's just another way of saying things because they come from a different culture. Maybe
for
kind of
sure.
this, right, can help. And also now you've been now mentioning many times about the mentorship, so that also people you admire, they have mentors, and that you had mentors. So it's really important to have mentors from what I can hear in this conversation, right? And I think the question that many people ask always, like whenever I go to these mentorship sessions, and everyone asks like, how can I get my mentor? Like, how can I find this
Right.
mentor? I would love to hear your opinion about this. Yeah.
Yeah, this is such a powerful question, and
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this too. And I think the most difficult thing about getting a mentor is it requires you to know where you're going next. It
Yeah.
requires us, Fernanda, to have an idea and a grasp of what is our next big thing.
Yeah.
So, without having done that, our work for ourselves up front, we can't, it's not easy to build meaningful mentorship relationships. The two most impactful mentors that I've had in my career, um, Justin, he is someone who has gone where I wanted to go. He had done what I wanted to do. He had blazed a trail in the direction that I was interested in sales and in moving to Germany. And so I met with him for coffee while I was still back in Seattle, while I was super junior. I had no sales skills. I had never carried quota. I had very, very limited capabilities. And I asked him, can I shadow someone on your team?
Yeah.
And this is my number one recommendation for the audience. I think people are underutilizing the ask, which is, can I just shadow someone on your team to learn more about the type of work they do? It's so low stakes. It's low investment. It can help you decide if this is truly your next big thing or not. So I sat with Caitlin in Seattle while Caitlin made cold calls to her lead list. And I was like, what is going on? She's calling people that she doesn't know. Like, what? Like, how do you even do? I couldn't imagine how I would do what she was doing. I didn't yet have the imagination to think about that yet, but it planted a seed that showed me it was possible. People were doing these jobs, and it helped me move out of my current department in risk management and move into sales and have much more access to global roles, income, etc. So, yeah, asking Justin to mentor someone on his team was a huge door opener that I used again with my mentor in Berlin for moving into Amazon Web Services. And yeah, when I flew into Berlin from London to just work side by side with the team for 2-3 days, the hiring manager came up to me and was like, dude, the way that you have been interacting with my team, the thoughtful questions you've been asking, the grace and the honesty and the kindness that you've shown to my team, is exactly what I need my team to show to customers in the field. So that's why I think you are a fit and you should apply for my open role.
Oh, well.
So if I hadn't taken the leap, Fernanda, to actually fly in and be like, hey, this is weird. I know people are not always flying in to just work next to your team and chat with them, shadow their calls, go for coffees. But I did that because it was big enough to me. It mattered and mattered enough. I was willing to live in that uncomfort, like discomfort, in order to get
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
I have one theory. I don't know, but if it is true, I want to ask your experience. Because lately, I also realized that mentors choose you as well. Like I explain how, uh, just based on my experience. Because lately, what has happened to me is like I just, for example, if I'm working somewhere and I just stay there and I work and I love learning, I love sharing, and I love helping people to get on board or up to speed. Like, for example, in my previous company, so they acquired a company, and then there was one person that was just a little bit, because everything was like, uh, he just didn't know the company, where to start. There were so many things. And then I was like, okay, I help you. And I was talking to him and I saw his profile. He was amazing. So I was like, oh my God, he has like 20 years or 30 or 40 years of experience in sales. Like, I think, yeah, he's really amazing. When I talked to him, he was an amazing human being. I was like, I want to be like him. And I was like, hey, I want to help you. Like, come, I help you. And I was sharing with him everything I knew, introducing him to everyone. And then at some point, everyone wanted to work with him, everyone in the company. And he loved working with me. And I felt like he chose me. I didn't ask for a mentorship. I felt like he was like, hey, Fernanda, come and join this call. This is going to help you. But, and then at this point, it's like, I want to mention what Neil just said. Like, I knew exactly that I wanted to do sales. So I was like, Giles is his name. I was like, hey, Giles, I really love sales. I really love how you do it. Can I? And I asked him, like, what you just said. I said, like, can I be in your calls? Can I be in every call that you have? And then I felt like I didn't ask, do you want to be my mentor?
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
I asked, like, can I be in your calls? Can I help you? Can I help you draft everything you need for this project? Can I be involved in this? Like, what do you? I was always asking him, what do you need? Are you in the city? Do you need a taxi? This is the place where I can go. And I felt like he chose me.
Yeah.
And then later, I feel like the more I put myself out, I feel like I feel like mentors choose you. I mean, if you have what you mentioned, this clarity of what you want, and if you ask for help, actually, yeah, or you put yourself out there. Is that
Both.
correct?
Yeah. It needs both. You're totally right. It's like you have to put yourself out there. You can't just observe them from afar like a wild animal. Like, yeah. And then, but I think that when you have that determination, it comes through in the way you speak. And yeah, also actions speak louder than words. That's why, like, you putting in the time, showing up, um, I think that's much better than the most well crafted "Can you be my mentor?" email. Right? Is
Yeah.
like show them why, show them the fit, and let it be natural. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe hopefully this can help you to everyone who's listening. But
Yeah.
I think at least for me it's working a lot. Yeah. So yeah, the one thing that Neil, I know you've been sharing with us so many things. Thank you so much. One thing I wanted to ask you is because sometimes I feel like, okay, I have my job, my full-time job, I have the project of Strong and Proud. I love meeting people, I love being with startups, I love doing sports, I love doing, and I feel I'm just like everywhere. Uh, what is, and at some point I feel like, yeah, I don't, I'm just a little bit afraid actually of losing focus, and I really want to excel in my career. I feel like everything I do is actually leading and helping that. But are there, for example, any things that you would recommend? Like, do you have some routines? Do you have some, how can you balance, maybe you don't have, I think you have actually a lot of interests like that, because I see you a lot in many places, but how do you manage to work with all of these things?
Yeah. So there's two things. So, and it's an ongoing effort. It's not
Yeah.
like you're never done with it. So,
Yeah.
one is structure and the other is habits. So
Mm.
structure is what like when does your day start and stop? And like what are the key kind of change or transition points throughout your day? So for me, a major boost is if you can basically wake up and go to bed at the same times, more or less, within like about an hour swing, like more or less 7 days a week. And I'm saying this as a DJ. So believe me, I also break this structure sometimes too. But more and more, when I break that structure, it's like I pay for it and I kind of,
Yeah.
it takes me some days to get back. So um, I really think structure in terms of go to sleep, wake up, meal times. I am shocked when I talk to folks that don't have regular meal times. I have like such regular meal times, within like 45 minutes or something like that. But it really helps my brain tackle the day because I know when work is stopping. I know when there's a break coming, and our brain. We need to work with our brains, work with our neuroscience. So don't try and be a hero. Give yourself structure. It helps. It makes it easier. It makes it easier on your brain and on your body. So we talked about sleep, meal times. Those are totally it. Yeah, phone is like the bane of every structure habit that we have. Yeah, I use black and white mode on my phone. So just like I set up a shortcut that with 3 clicks it sets
Yeah.
the device to black and white mode. And black and white is way less stimulating and rich for our brain than full color. I mean, the power of screens is really incredible now. So yeah, just hitting black and white mode, you can schedule it. I also just do it when I'm feeling a bit of overwhelm. I'm like, cool, let's just boom, black and white. And then I can get done whatever message, email I need to get out. Things just happen and then I'm not stressed about it. So those are some really, really good ones there. The second one is habits. So we talked about these transition points in the day. For me, 3 p.m. is a really important transition point. My wife has referred to it as my witching hour when I get super grumpy and impatient about anything, can't do anything. And I was struggling with it, Fernanda, because I was like, why do my sales calls or my manager one-on-ones at 3 p.m. they're like so hard for me? And I just suck. Like I'm not showing up. I'm not performing well. I'm not at my best. Like what is it with me? And then I looked at the clock when I was observing this, and it was always around this kind of 3 p.m. to 3:30 window. And I was like, that's my witching hour. I need to just drop everything and stop at 3 p.m. and don't try and force myself to be smart and do good work because I just can't. It's like my brain is just fatigued. So every day from 3 to 3:30, I have this habit stack where I take a 12-minute timed nap, I take a 12-minute meditation, and then I make a cup of green tea and have something like a date or some kind of fruit for sugar. And you wouldn't believe what my performance is like at 4 p.m. after I've done this regen cycle. It's like everyone else is slowing down. They're between their 2 p.m. and their 5 p.m. coffee or whatever. And I don't do any caffeine stuff after like 3. And I'm just like, boom, I'm back in the zone. So then I can work even till 6 or 7:30, or there's an event that I need to go to. Like meditating before going to big social events is totally the hack for your brain because so much stimulation, so much overwhelm. So power nap, meditation, tea and date, that's my regen blocker, 3 to 3:30. That's my habit I recommend you find your version of too.
Oh, thanks so much. I think one thing, for example, for the audience that can help, I don't, at least to me, helps me a lot when you say, like, I put for example, if I went to the sports, last year it worked perfectly actually, because I had exact days when I wanted to train, exact times when I wanted to train. And things that also helped me was to have people to keep me accountable. Like, so that's why I was organizing all these groups. So whatever I wanted to do new, I will organize like swimming groups, running groups, gym
Oh,
groups.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I will always invite someone. So I was like, people there. And
Yeah.
then because I was the organizer, I couldn't fail, because I was
Yeah.
organizing it. I had
You're
to
committed.
go. So, and I make it public. I made it publicly, my other accounts, like, so people knew. So I was like, okay, I told everyone I'm gonna train. I thought I bring the people so I cannot say no. And
Yeah.
I trained the whole year. So I think maybe that also helps for the audience. If you invite someone, maybe sometimes alone, I feel like I can always say myself like, oh, Fernanda, I'm too tired. It's okay if you take a break today, and then suddenly I take breaks of 3 days. But if I'm with somebody, then it's much easier to keep on my
Yeah.
plans.
That accountability is magic, right?
Mm,
And if you're doing it solo and you have like a tracker journal with like the number of days in a row that you did something, and you're like putting a X on each day that you did your training or you did your habit, that's really cool for installing new habits, because I
mhm.
think it takes something like 26 days on average for us to install a new habit. So for the first 26 days, it's harder to do than not do, but after that, it flips. It's actually harder to miss than to
Yeah.
keep. And I also do. I also always start my habits as 5 days a week. I don't do 7 because I just focus on getting 5 right, and I tick a box on everything that I did right.
Um,
And then you can optionally extend it to 6 or 7, but giving yourself space to set a low bar and then clear it. This is all covered in James Clear's book Atomic Habits.
oh, and I need to read that book. Yeah. And what you just mentioned, I think everything goes also to the point of what you said, like understand yourself. I mean, that sounds very like poetic, but I think it's very true and very important. Like if you kind of start, like you said, like understanding when you're performing the best, when you are not performing the best, and also this is maybe for another episode, but also if you are a woman, there are many other things that play a, at least for me, I see suddenly one week I'm like like I'm yeah performing better than everyone on earth. Like everyone is like Fernanda, Fernanda, how how do you do it? Why do you have so much energy? And then I started tracking everything, and I was like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. But yeah, we can keep that. But it's just like understanding your work, yourself, and then putting that you can be really productive at work. So it's everything very correlated, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, I think the underlying point is like working with your body, not fighting
yeah,
against it. Working with
yeah,
our brains, not fighting against them. And
yeah.
the yeah, that really makes everything better. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think we don't have much time, but I want to say like thank you so much for everything. I think it was very, very valuable, and thank you so much for taking the time also to be here. Maybe we just close with one thing, like, or two things. So one thing is like I want to know like what is coming next for you, for Neil. What are your plans? Are you preparing for something? Are you studying something apart from your work? What is coming for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. I'm taking a course right now from Stanford Executive Education,
Oh
which
wow.
is called Mastering Storytelling for Authentic Leadership. It's quite a grand title. But I never realized that you can study the art of storytelling. And Fernanda, today we've touched on so many topics around authentic leadership, visibility, communication. So I'm really excited. I'm in week 2 of this 8-week course, and I just submitted the first assignment. So I'm looking forward to digging in and learning more about how to connect storytelling with, my purpose and my identities. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And maybe would you like to give your last, for example, suggestion or yeah, to people like me, who are like now trying to be into leadership roles in sales or in general, like in a leadership role, like in a big tech company, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I would say contact one person in your network that you don't need anything from right now.
Hmm.
Still contact them. Like, this is a great Q4 practice. Like, just check in with someone that you admire. Check in to first of all hear how they're doing, because I know for me in sales, I can be very me focused or very like yeah, there's an action I want you to take, right? With my outreach to people. Try it differently. Just right now with the holidays coming, like reach out to someone that you admire and just ask them to catch up, to hear how they're doing. That's something that I'm going to practice this week, and I encourage you to do too.
Okay. Thank you so much again for everything. I think I learned a lot, and I'm sure like the audience as well. So yeah, thank you so much again, Neil.
Thank you, Fernanda. It's my pleasure.
Okay, we're gonna leave all your information, LinkedIn information, your podcast as well, and some other information about Neil in the description of this video. And yeah, thank you everyone for hearing us. This project keeps growing, and we're gonna invite more people for interviews. And yeah, wishing you a lovely day. Bye.
Thanks.